Usually at Girteka we consider that if you switch from road to rail, you can save up to 90% of emissions, I believe.
That's right, yeah.
But if we go back a little bit to the topic of energy, where does it come from exactly? Like, if you could tell me a little bit about the technology behind wagons and locomotives, how does it work and where does the energy come from? Is it green energy or?
Well, regarding the service we are using, mostly a big majority is effectively electric energy and of course regarding France, nuclear energy. So for this reason, we can consider it green energy. This is another debate. Is nuclear green energy or not? But in terms of emissions, of course, it is. So this is through France. Of course, we still have some last miles shunting diesel locomotives, so we have a bit of energy here, but we are also using or trying to use more and more electrics shunting locomotive as well. So this is a permanent evolution. The same way that I said in the truck, you went to Euro 4, Euro 5, Euro 6. The same is happening on the locomotive as well to limit the emissions. So this is a permanent fight and we need to progress into that as well.
Right. And once again, speaking about challenges, for instance, this month we had a lot of floods in Europe in general, and I believe it affected not just people but also roads and infrastructure in general.
Yeah.
And same goes with strikes that we saw this year in Europe, that there are road blockades and then there are also damages to infrastructure. How do such events affect you as intermodal transport provider?
We are directly affected by both, whatever it's social movement, strike, or whatever it's climate events. Of course, we think about Valencia, what happened right now, but it has also happened south of France the last months and also north of France, close to Calais last year. And during a certain period, you can just not drive or just not run your trains just because of the flooding, and then the rail infrastructure is damaged. So we can do a lot with a deviation program, so that you are not only linked to one way of going from one point to another, but you have to find some deviation point. So it means you need evolution in the infrastructure to allow you to go to part A or part B. Nevertheless, if you are blocked in France at certain point, or Germany the same, or in Italy the same, like the mountain falling last year between France and Italy, and we are still working on the rail, so the line has to be stopped. So these events, they are going to impact us in the future more and more. For example, if you talk about Le Boulou and the service we are having in south of France, we also are going to develop a new terminal in the port of Sete, which is locating less than 250 kilometers north of Le Boulou, to be also considered as a backup solution. Okay, as from Sete, we will develop new business and mostly connecting short sea shipping lines and trains, so that will be from Turkey to UK, not touching the road. Okay, you go on the ferry, then you jump on a train. But this terminal of Sete will also be a backup of Le Boulou if something would happen south of France in Le Boulou in this climate event that are coming more and more.
I noticed you mentioned evolution of the infrastructure. So could you explain how do you see this would look like, and how do you think the network will be developing in the future?
Our goal is really, as a rail operator, to transport as much as possible. And now the demand is coming. So we need to prepare the infrastructure and we need to give the right signals. First signal is that the train should be as long as possible. And 850 meters is the kind of trains we operate today, but we also need to target 1 kilometer long trains. We all have in mind the trains, and I'm not talking about Australia, I'm not talking about America, but these long trains, sometimes double stock, that will never happen in France, or that will never happen in Europe. But having trains with 1 kilometer on certain corridors, main corridors, this is the goals we should all have together. That's number one. And number two, we want to transport as much as possible, but to a larger network as possible to fill the demand. So if we arrive today in Le Boulou and as from Le Boulou we connect with Spain, and majority, 95% of the goods go to Spain, we need to get into Spain. It was not possible for years, but now due to the infrastructure development and the good job organized by ADIF, which is the rail infrastructure operator for Spain, it will be possible to connect Barcelona and soon Valencia. So this is definitely our interest to extend the line we are producing and operating today so that we can enlarge our network and serve the customer, the transportation companies on the very long run.
Regarding France particularly, because it seems to me that for the size of the country, it seems like there are very few intermodal lanes. Could you comment why is that, and do you think it will change in the next years?
Yeah, I think this is part of the, let's say, disindustrialization. France first is a transit country, so if you talk about international, mainly the transportation companies are coming into France from Benelux or Germany, cross France and get out either in Spain or going to Portugal on the other side. So we're a transit country, but talking about France, used to be a very strong industrial country. It's still a strong industrial country, but nevertheless, the volume that is produced right now is not allowing anyone or not everyone to be rail connected and to produce a daily train from one point to another one. So this has been first reduced a lot, the number of tons transported by train because of this disindustrialization program. And now we are, let's say, focusing on rail again, but not only focusing about this major industry, one full train of steel and one full train of paper, which is still existing, but not as much as it used to be. But we are mostly focusing on this combined approach of containers, of trailers, having different customers, using the same corridor, where we can have this, we call them the VIIA Connect. So this is a terminal where you connect from road to rail and then organize this massification. We should also say that in France, to give the complete picture, there is also, especially with the Naviland, the subsidiary of the group Rail Logistique Europe, they are also connecting the port for the deep sea shipment from the containers terminal, so from Marseille, from Le Havre, and this is really growing over the last period. So you get a part of industry going down in a way, so you get the feeling the rail is going down, but this part is going down probably, but some combined approach, containers and trailers approach is going up again.
It looks like it. Actually, I have a question about, because earlier you mentioned that at the time when there was not so much demand for rail, you had to convince other operators or carriers that this is the way to go. How did you do that?
Well, that was a challenge. You mentioned the word, that's true. It was a challenge because many people were really not believing in it or would believe in it, but they consider that will happen later on. You know, this is the kind of things you know it will happen, but you think it will happen first to the others, and maybe it will come in 20 or 25 years, so you're not really concerned. So it takes a while to convince, because you don't only have to convince the manager or the general manager of the company. You need to convince the sales team, you need to convince the operations, you need to convince the human resources people. So this is a global approach you need to develop, number one. Number two, clearly, you need to prove by the example. So you need to give the possibility to the people to test your product. And this kind of product is easy to test because easy to jump on the train, easy to go out of the train. So you don't have to make any investment in a specific material because the trailers we are loading, these are the trailers that are on the road every day. So this is an easy to use and easy to test. So that has helped a lot as well.
Why do you think it is still relevant, and why should companies be interested in implementing rail transport into their operations?
We should say in the transport business, what we are doing here is not only an ecological program or ecological solution, it is, but not only. This is also an economical solution somehow, because unaccompanied transport means that during the time one locomotive is pulling 48 trailers, your driver can do something else. So somehow with a reduced number of drivers or with the same number of drivers, you can produce more traders.
Or you can fulfill the driver shortage part.
That's exactly the point. That's why we also involve human resources people, because sometimes, and especially in France at the moment, nationally, it's more and more complicated to find drivers that want to go international. And using the train is a solution to go through that.
But speaking about the ecological part, who do you think in the end can benefit from the intermodal service as is?
Well, we first of all think about the transportation companies, but they are themselves service provider. So again, we don't have to avoid the final market, the citizens, the consumers. They are the one to decide somehow. They are the one to say, for the future, we want to go with products that are produced either more locally or that are transported in a more greener way. And this is the service we are delivering. So the more demand will go into this direction, and this is to them that it benefits. So it benefits to the society at the end. It's benefit to the company that we are, of course, but it benefits to the society. The transportation program or the transportation approach we started as a pioneer 17 years ago, is not only a new way of transporting, this is let's say, a movement of the society, and this is combining both, that today, everyone is looking for a more greener transport, and it's a must. And all the events you were talking, the climate change or the climate event you were talking about, are showing us the way, are proving that we need to do something. So in fact, of course, this is a service, and this is a service to deliver a transport, basic transport, from point A to point B. But with this solution, we do more than that. You allow to your drivers, some of them, to sleep home every day. You allow to reduce the number of accidents on the road. You allow to save CO2. Okay, so this is a social movement, okay? And we like to believe in that, because instead of customer, we have really the strong feeling that we have created around our service a community of people that believe or share the same values that we have. We need to fight for the quality of the service. We are fighting, we need to fight for the performance, and we are fighting for that. But we also globally share the intention, globally share the wish that we can deliver for the future more sustainable transport.
So when speaking about communities and the role of other people being interested in this, do you think partnerships and cooperation are important when it comes to this?
The partnership and the cooperation are keys. We have established or grow in our business through this partnership and collaboration. We have several ones. We are celebrating today 7 years of collaboration with Girteka today. We have long-term partnership with many people. We have more and more triangle approach. The final, let's say, carrier, the transportation company is number one, but also the industry and the shipper behind, and VIIA as a rail operator. This triangle approach is more and more a benefit for everyone. You would like to establish a multimodal solution, but you need a commitment of volume. The final company would like to get this CO2 emission commitment, so all of us have the same interest. So you don't go into multimodal if you're not convinced. You don't go into multimodal if you don't feel that you have the right partner. You can test it, you can go and have like a customer-supplier relation, but if you really want to develop this on the long run and you need to implicate everyone in your company, you really need partnership. And this is all about what I have been developing, what the company have been developing to achieve the success we have today.
Is there any success story that you could share, or case study with a client or this triangular model?
You can imagine that in 17 years I have many things to share, but of course I will share a word first on Girteka. We are celebrating 7 years of collaborations. We will transport this year more than 15,000 loads during the year. We are about to go over 50,000 loads altogether since we have been working together. So this has been key. This has been key, the partnership, in many ways. It helped us to change the image. Once we decided to work together and go for a pilot first, and then decided to go further because the quality of service were there and the demand was there. When the first trailers of Girteka arrived on the terminal, it was not just trailers arriving on the terminal, it was reefer goods arriving on the rail terminals from a Lithuanian operator, probably today is #1 in Europe in terms of fleet, own fleet. So for everyone, every workers in the company of VIIA, it was a kind of change in mind to say, we have achieved the fact that the Lithuanian transportation companies is willing to transport reefer goods on the train with us. So that was, let's say, on both sides, that was a strong decision for both organizations. But it brings us 7 years later to this kind of result with more demand now from the market. So this has been definitely a success story.
So speaking about the future, how do you think the intermodal rail network will be developing, first of all? And second of all, are you aware of any technological innovations that will affect intermodal rail transport in the next years?
Well, in terms of networks, it's clear that as VIIA, we would like to expand our network in both ways. Number one, we would like to create new terminal and we're going to open new routes, thinking about the Atlantic corridor for next year. And also, as I mentioned, connecting the port of Sete to the port of Calais. So we are extending our network, creating new routes, and thinking also going into Spain, and we are really targeting Valencia as a very potential area and strong area. And this will be hopefully one of the first trains once the Mediterranean corridor will be operational. So these are the developments we would like to do, let's say, under our control. But parallel of it, we understand that the market is really in demand, and the demand is going fast at the moment. And we are also limited in our capacity to invest, to build up terminals everywhere. This will not be possible. So we need also to probably build a partnership. I mentioned before partnership with a road transport operator, but we also need to build a partnership with a rail transport operator so that we can connect or interconnect terminals or services. I will give one example today with our colleagues from Luxembourg, because through the terminal of Betonburg in Luxembourg, we are connecting Spain to Luxembourg and then Luxembourg to Poland, for example. So this is already an example of system of connecting networks, and this will happen more and more in the future. And we are also really focusing on, as I mentioned, also connecting the short sea shipping with the rail services. Short sea shipping, one vessel, the smallest vessel, they have 250 pieces on board. The biggest vessel, they have more than 600 trailers on board. So you can imagine that when a ferry arrive on the port, open the doors, you have like 500, 600 trailers that should be shift to road. Again, this is also our duty all together, that we allow that this trailer could go on road, of course, but could also go on the rail if it goes on a long distance. So we will build up stronger relationship together with rail operator, but also with short sea shipping lines in the future.
And what about technology that will affect the equipment, like a locomotive or wagons? What will be the developments?
Well, there are some new wagons arriving on the market now. We were one of the first using the LOR technology of wagons, almost 20 years ago now. But since that date, new technology of wagons are arriving from new wagons manufacturer. We are looking at it. Some of them are effective already on certain route, and it works. We always look at not only the cost of the wagon, but also the productivity of the wagons. What is the weight of the wagons? What is the length of the wagons? Can we transport as much as possible as what we do today? So there are some new initiatives, and it's always good, like any industry, to look at the new or innovation, because the market, or the rail market and the rail volume, will only develop if we look at innovation, allowing to load as much trailers as possible. But there are some existing new, and there will be new ones to come for sure. Which is what is important is always to focus that the rail service always match the road demand. You cannot have a big gap in between the conditions going by road or going by rail. We need to be linked somehow, and this technology should allow us either to reduce the handling cost, either to reduce the number, let's say, of the space you need to build up a terminal. So we need to go into this direction to always look for better performance.
And do you think AI development will somehow help with intermodal rail operations in the future, or?
Yeah, the world is going fast. We are trying to, we were talking about digitalization. We are still, all of us, into this process, and now we are already integrating AI. Of course, AI is already part of the project, because if you look at mostly on the forecast of the volume you will transport in the future, if you integrate the data, the forecast from any industry, if you look at what happened in the automotive, if you look at what happened with the fruit and vegetable market, you put that into the data, it gives you already some trends of forecast. So we already start to anticipate the forecast of the business for the coming years, integrating, doing some tests with AI, but it will go further and faster now, for sure, for the coming years.
Okay. Daniel, since we're finishing an episode now, I would like to ask you if you have any specific message for our listeners that you would like to share.
Yeah, the key point is that everybody feels somehow that either you already done what you could do for multimodal, or it will not be for you. In fact, multimodal is part of our future. It's not that I will go or not go, it's a question of time. And I really recommend everyone to put his own goals on multimodal, to achieve his own goals, to involve everyone in the company. This is not only about exploitation, this is not only about operation or about sales, this is everyone in the company. If you want to propose your service in the future, the market is in demand of sustainable transport, and multimodal rail transport is a way to give you this answer. So the main point for me is really for everyone to consider a part of it, and not to consider that this is something that will come later on, because later on will be too late.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us for today's episode.
My pleasure, thank you.
And I would also like to thank our listeners for joining us. If you would like to learn more about sustainability, please visit our website and follow us on social media. See you next time.